Thank you all for joining us for this webinar, Puppy Enrichment and Preparing Puppies for Their New Home. In this webinar, Revival's Director of Veterinary Services, Dr. Marty Greer, will be sharing her knowledge. Dr. Greer has over 40 years of experience in veterinary medicine with special interests in canine reproduction and pediatrics. She's received her Doctor of Veterinary Medicine from Iowa State University in 1981, and she's served as Revival's Director of Veterinary Services since 2019. So thanks for joining us today, Dr. Greer.
Thanks everybody for having me. I do really practice. I own 3 clinics. I'm in scrubs today because this is what I do. So one of the things I think that is important for you to know is that I not only practice in 3 different settings with breeders that we use, that we spend a great deal of time working with. About half of what we do in practice is with breeder clients in our 6-doctor practice. So I do have experience from that. I've learned a lot of things from my breeders, and I've been a breeder on my own for the last 35 years. So there are lots of things along the way that we've learned. So I think it's important that you know that this isn't some philosophical discussion that I've sort of, just created, but these are actually firsthand experiences. So for me, this discussion today is, can we make the transition into a new home easier for the puppies, easier for the people that are purchasing puppies from you? We want them to be successful. We want them to have fun with their new puppies. And there's some steps that we can take to help socialize the puppies and to make that transition into crate training and food and water changes and all those things a little bit more efficient, parasite control, some of those other important things. So the topics today will be socialization, the importance of that, early neurological stimulation. We're going to talk about Litterbox training, crate training, environmental enrichment, just a very quick couple of slides on contracts. I can do a whole hour on contracts, so trust me, we're not going to do the whole thing today, but just enough to make sure that you're aware of some things. Some additional tools that we can give you, placing the puppies, transitioning into their new homes, and then some resources for your puppies. So socialization is a term that gets thrown around a lot, and we talk about it a lot. We've talked about it probably since the 70s when we really started paying attention to these things. So learning really begins in our puppies immediately. As soon as they're born, they start having experience where they start learning things. Now, puppies have a different socialization period and a social skills than kittens. Kittens' social window starts at 3 weeks of age and ends at around 7 weeks of age. Puppies really start later than that. They start around 6 or 7 weeks of age and then continue ongoing for the rest of their life during their socialization. So it's important that we start the socialization appropriately and easily and at the right time for the puppies, depending on where they're at in their development, when their eyes open, when their ears open, when they start learning, when all these things start to happen. So we can't overemphasize the importance of good socialization for our dogs. A lot of people are still suffering the effects. A lot of dogs are suffering the effects of what happened during COVID. A lot of people went out and got new dogs because they were at home. It was a good chance to get them. They were lonely. They felt like they'd put the ownership of a new dog off for too many years, and that their kids were home saying, "Mom, Dad, really, can't we get a puppy now? We're home. Can't we make this work?" And so, yes, the market changed a lot during COVID, and a lot of people bought dogs. And some of them are not well socialized. I show in AKC events, and we're still seeing puppies hitting the grooming tables, and the judges coming over to puppies that may be a little uncomfortable being handled because they weren't socialized well. I have a grandson that was born during COVID. He's an entirely different kid than the one that was born before COVID. Even though they're full brothers, of course, they still have different personalities, but a lot of socialization really changed during COVID. So I'm going to give you some tools, even if you're not fully back to the socialization, that you can use, and then some other things that we can move forward, even with the puppies that we have that are already maybe 2 or 3-year-old dogs. There's some tools and some tricks here for things that you can do as well. So I want to make sure that we cover a lot of information today. The most important thing that we really start thinking about for puppy development is early neurological stimulation, ENS, or the Super Dog program. It was started as a military program for dogs that were going to be used as military dogs. So the dogs that were sitting in the trenches or the foxholes with our soldiers were, as soon as they were able to start being handled at 3 days of age, that they were put through a series of very important and very structured exercises to help them be more social, more stable, and better able to handle stress. If I were sitting in a trench with a dog and there were rocket fire over my head, I would want that dog to be cool, calm, collected, and really know how to handle themselves. So we know from this study, and Carmen Battaglia really did a great job in popularizing this. And I will tell you from firsthand experience, it makes a huge difference in how puppies handle stress. So the benefits noted from this ENS program were improved cardiovascular performance. In other words, the puppies, when they're stressed, don't have as high a heart rate. They're cooler, calmer. They have stronger heartbeats. Their adrenal function is better. So when they're stressed, they don't act as stressed. They're more tolerant to stress, and have greater resistance to disease. So really important aspects of how our puppies develop. And if you are experienced with this, you can probably already shake your head and say, yes, I know it makes a difference. If this is something that's new to you, I want to give you the basics of it so that you really get the opportunity to see it. And I am going to show you a video of what it looks like. So we're going to go through the 5 steps, but I'm also going to show you a short video that demonstrates how easy this really is to do. It's important that we started at the right age and we ended at the right age. It starts on day 3 of age. As soon as the puppies are born, you start counting. Day 3, you start. And day 16 is the last day that you do it. And you only do it once a day. And as you can see from the video and the pictures, it only takes you a few seconds every puppy, probably about 30 seconds a puppy. One of my first litters of farm dogs, I didn't do this because the mom was really great with them. It was different than raising corgis. The mom was great. The puppies were social. They were settled. I felt like I really don't need to mess with them. She's doing a super job. And so I really didn't do this with this one particular litter. And I'll tell you that some of the puppies in the litter are not nearly as socially stable as puppies from other litters from the same dam and the same sire born in a different litter where I handled them differently. So I'm going to tell you from firsthand experience, it makes a huge difference in their social skills. The 5 steps include, number 1, being head up. So there's a photograph and a drawing for each of these. So you hold the puppy with its head above its shoulders and above its hips, just directly up, firmly and securely in your hands for a count of 5 seconds. So I just count 1001, 1002, 1003, 1004, 1005. I don't set a stopwatch. I just count. So it's 5 seconds head up, 5 seconds head down. Now you don't sharply move them down like you're swinging them. You just gently turn them over so their head is directly down below their pelvis and their front legs and their shoulders. The 3rd step is 5 seconds on their back. And you can actually do these in any order. It's just, this is the order I tend to do them in because it's sort of how I've learned it. So you roll them onto their back and hold them for 5 seconds. And it's really interesting to see which puppies are very cooperative about this step. Some are really great, even at 3 days of age, and others take a few more days before they really adjust to the fact that you're laying them on their back, because they should have a natural tendency to right themselves. That's a normal reflex that puppies should have. But they also can learn to be relaxed and accept this position. Not that it's a dominant position, but that it's just a position that they learn to respect and to be relaxed in. The 4th step is thermal stimulation. So it's a cold, wet towel. I had one kid that came to one of the meetings that said he held the puppy on the cold glass in the kennel. My husband uses a Mountain Dew can because it's just too hard to go to the bathroom and wet down a towel and wring it out and bring it to the bedroom where the puppies are. So he never goes anywhere without a can of Mountain Dew. So he'll pull out a cold can of Mountain Dew and lay their belly on that for 5 seconds. So that's 1001, 1002, 1003, 1004, 1005. And then the 5th step is tactile stimulation, where you tickle the bottom of the foot between the pads, not just on the pads, but between the pads with a Q-tip, a cotton swab, something. And I tend to use different feet on each puppy. I tend not to do the same, like the left front foot isn't the one I always do. It's shown in this picture, but I'll move it around so they get accustomed to the other feet being touched. Now, this is just a really short video of me with one of the farm dogs, and it's fairly simple. The female is in the box. You can see she's pretty comfortable with the whole thing. So that's 5 seconds down, after 5 seconds up. 5 seconds on the puppy's back, just securely in my hands. Just make the puppy feel safe. I'm counting. And then I'm going to tickle the bottom of the foot without the Q-tip because I didn't have one. And then the towel in the box is the wet cold towel. So it's really simple, very quick. It takes about 30 seconds a puppy, and it can make a huge difference socially in these puppies. Now, I've also had some clients tell me that they've introduced scents at this point, so that even though the puppies don't have their eyes and their ears open yet, and they don't have any sensory coming in from those 2 organs, that they are already able to smell. They smell their mother. They can feel where she is. And so they introduce scents. This is a kit that you can purchase online. You can set up your own. You certainly don't have to buy a kit, but it's kind of interesting just to see what's in this particular kit, that you can develop your own. You can do cloves one day, and you can do, lavender another day, and you can do the smell of beef or liquid smoke or something. So you can vary these things and just have your own little kit that every day, along with the sixth step, that you introduce a new scent. Now, it should be scents that are relatively pleasant. I try not to do anything that's offensive to the puppy. Fingernail polish is offensive. There's a lot of things that we have in our lives that are kind of offensive. So I like to make it something that's rather pleasant, maybe something that would be a food source, and just kind of fun to see which puppies react in what way to different scents. So there's lemongrass and all kinds of things in this particular kit, but please don't feel obligated to buy it. You can very easily go to your kitchen and go to your medicine chest and probably find all kinds of interesting things there that you can develop for scents. The next step is when the puppies open their eyes. So around 14 days of age, when the puppies first open their eyes, I like to have the lighting fairly soft in the room. I don't like it to be harsh, fluorescent, harsh lighting, bright light, sunlight, those kinds of things. I think it's nice if their first experiences are with a gentle, soft kind of light, just so that they have that experience. When they first open their eyes, you'll see that their eyes are a little bit cloudy, and it's not unusual for them not to have really clear vision at that point. The clouding of the cornea takes a little while to resolve. So it's just nice for some gentle light to come in initially. The same with the sounds, is it's nice to have gentle, soft sounds. There's a couple of devices you can purchase that have particular songs or particular sounds that are appropriate for dogs. You can go to Amazon and find these very easily and find them. And the other thing that you can do with this sound thing is you can buy CDs and MP3 files and all those things of sounds that you can use to help desensitize puppies, especially if you have dogs that are sound sensitive. Dogs with upright ears, like German Shepherds, dogs like Shelties, they tend to be fairly sound reactive. And so if you can very softly and gently play the sounds of sirens or lightning and thunder, well, lightning, of course, you can't play, but thunder that goes with it. Any of those sounds that might be a little bit startling to a puppy. I had one of the first litters of corgis we sold. The puppy was in the kitchen with their family, and they heard the squeeze of the ketchup bottle when it was kind of empty. It made kind of a loud noise. It kind of startled the puppy. So it made me realize early on in my breeding that we needed to make sure that our puppies were able to hear normal household sounds. So we initially were raising puppies in the bedroom, and once the puppies' eyes were open, ears were open, and they were accustomed to those lighting and those sounds, then we very carefully and gradually moved them out to the rest of the household, where they could hear the sounds of the kitchen and smell food cooking and the other things that happen in a household. Because it's really important when you sell your puppies to families that these puppies are going to have experiences that they pre-exist, and that they're not startled or afraid of any of the things that might be happening in normal life settings. When I spoke in Missouri at one of the pet breeders associations, I brought up Litterbox training, and of all the topics that we've talked about, medical and otherwise, this one generated probably the most active and interesting discussion for how Litterbox training can work. Now, at Revival, we're working on developing a Litterbox system for puppies, but we don't have it yet. So instead of waiting for that development to take place, I went ahead and showed you some of the things that I do at my house. I started doing this about 20 years ago, not with my first litter of puppies, but with a litter of corgi puppies I had that were 10 puppies. And it was a lot of puppies. So anytime you have a lot of puppies, you have a lot of a mess to clean up. So I developed we tried a number of different things. And over the years, I've tried a variety of these. I've tried shallow trays. I've tried other things. What works best for me with my little tiny puppies, my little farm dogs and my little corgis, is to use a paint pan. And this is just your basic silver metal paint pan that you can purchase at Menards or Home Depot or Walmart or wherever. And then at some of the stores, they sell these disposable liners. These liners are 3 for $1.88. So they're simple, they're inexpensive, and they very nicely fit into the paint pan tray. Now, the reason I buy the metal one is because I can take those feet that stand the paint tray up a couple of inches, and I can flex them and bend them out so that that paint tray is only about an inch off the ground for the little tiny short-legged corgi puppies, but the opposite end is a little bit deeper, so it helps to contain the material, the litter material, so it doesn't go flying out. It keeps the box neater. And if you introduce this at just the right age, between 3 and 4 weeks of age, you'll have pretty good success. Occasionally I have a litter that's a little messy. Most of the time, these puppies very easily are attracted to the use of the litter, the substrate that's in the litter box. So if you wait till they're too old, if you've already got puppies that are 5 or 6 weeks old, it's probably not going to work out very well for you. If you have puppies coming up that are coming of age or will be coming of age, go ahead, go out and get your litter box, whatever device you decide to do. And I'll show you a couple of other choices here, but make sure you start at between 3 and 4 weeks of age. It's really interesting that that's developmentally where the puppies seem to really respond best to it. Now, substrates can be a variety of different things. I use the Marth horse pellets. I can buy them at my local fleet farm. You can buy them at Tractor Supply, at the feed mill. There's lots of places to buy these. You can also buy newspaper pellets that are made for cat litter boxes. You can buy cat litter, the clumping kind or the clay kind. You can use shredded newspaper. There's a variety of different substrates that work. I used to use pine shavings, and those got caught in the coats of the puppies, so it made the puppies kind of messy, but the wood pellets tend to break up and just stay kind of granular on the bottom of the box. If they're urine, wet down with urine, they'll kind of fall apart a little bit. The newspaper pellets do a nice job of absorbing things. And I also have a lot of people that say, well, aren't the puppies going to eat the litter? And I have never had a puppy eat cat litter or the pelleted newspaper or pelleted wood. Of course, you should be observant. I'm never going to say never, but I'm going to say that it's pretty unusual if you introduce it at this age that they will eat it. If you start them a little bit older when they're already starting onto solid food, you might be more likely to have that happen. This is how my whelping box is set up in my bathroom. So I have a large whelping box, and you can see the black circle underneath that tray where the pellets are. That's my whelping nest that's heated, but by the time they're 3 weeks old and I introduce the litter box, I no longer have that plugged in. So it's not like baking the urine in the stool. It's unplugged, so it's still present. So there's a little bed there and a little tray. And then beyond that, you're going to see that there's also another litter tray, and that's for the dam, for the mother. And occasionally, if I've had a female that I've raised at my house and she's needing to go out during the night and I'm not awake and not aware that she needs to go out, she'll actually go into that tray and urinate and or defecate. So it's kind of interesting to see that those females, even as adult dogs, will revert back to the use of a litter box. The other thing that you're going to see is there's a white mesh bath mat laying there. So that if the puppies do urinate outside the litter box, the urine runs through that and it's on the surface of the whelping box instead of against the puppy's skin. It keeps these puppies much cleaner, much drier. A couple of times a day, you go in, clean the litter box. If it's really messy, I throw the disposable liner out. If it's just a little bit, I'll dump that out because the stool will stick to the pellets and it won't, unless they have diarrhea, it won't mess up the tray. I'll just throw that litter away and replace it. So it's a very efficient, very effective system. And it's a great way to keep puppies clean and dry while you're in the process of getting them ready to start going outside. And so this is the same setup with actual dogs in it, so that you can see that it's not just what I set up and pretended to use. I actually use this. Now, this is a litter box failure. And I want to show you the difference. This is a different kind of paint pan liner. It's higher profile. It's a black, heavy plastic. It's much more rigid than those white ones that lay really low profile and really tight to the box. It's still the same paint pan, but the liner just doesn't stay in the box very well because the puppies can pick it up and carry it around. So if you've had a failure, this might be the cause. I just don't use these black liners. They're great if you're painting. They're not great for puppies that you're using for a litter box. And again, this is my whelping box, a different whelping box, a different litter of puppies, but still the same system. Works really well. And that nice fleece works great as well. This is the Lakeside whelping box that is modular, so you can take it apart and put it back together when you need it. One of my clients raises puppies in her garage, and she uses these trays. So she has taken the racks from closets and then placed them over trays that have newspaper under them. And her puppies will also use these. So it's just a different system. There are probably as many systems for litter box training puppies as there are people out there raising dogs. But I'm going to give you a couple of examples, and then you can modify these to do what you want to do. And be aware, like I said, that Revival is working on developing this system. The next step, of course, is to follow mom outside. So it's great if you can have a door that opens off of your kennel, off of your bedroom, your bathroom, your kitchen, wherever you raise your puppies. It's really great if you can have a puppy door and let mom just take the puppies outside with her so she can teach them to go potty in the yard. They learn so much from their mothers and from other dogs at your household that you'd be surprised. Don't forget to take advantage of this learning tool. And then, of course, I don't always have the opportunity, depending on what my setup is. If I'm at the office, I don't have a door that opens right off of my whelping box. So I have often used a rolling tote. This is a picture I took offline, but I often use a rolling tote that has wheels on it. You can buy those for about $15 or $20 at Walmart. I just plunk the puppies in it and run them out really quickly so that I can take them all at one time. And if you take them first thing when they wake up and you quickly put them in there and then wheel them outside really quick, many times they will be able to hold urine and stool until you can get them out to the grass, in our case in Wisconsin, snow, when we want them to go out and go potty. The other really important trick of using this litter box is if you've taken them puppies somewhere, like I take them to work with me so that I don't have to leave them at home all day. If you've taken them to the vet clinic, if you've done anything with them, as soon as you wake them up or you move the puppies, put them in the litter tray as they're waking up, because that's when they typically want to have the opportunity to urinate. So if as soon as they wake up, you put them in the litter tray and you get them accustomed to that pattern, they will urinate in there. Now, I'll tell you honestly, the girls and the boys do a very good job of having stools in the litter box. The girls do a really good job of urinating in the litter box. The boys, on the other hand, often will put their front feet in the litter box, their back feet right on the edge of it. So they urinate right on the side of it, not actually into the litter. So I'll often use an absorbent pad underneath it so that I can catch that urine. It's just the boys aren't very specific about where they go potty. So I'm just going to say it's not that different for boy puppies. But I don't use just those flat chuck pads, those puppy housebreaking pads. I don't have good success with those at all. And I know there's holders for them that are supposed to keep them flat, but in my experience, when I've used those with puppies, they've picked them up and drug them around and torn them up and just made them into a great big puppy toy instead of being a place that they'll urinate. It might be different if you only have one puppy, but when you have a litter, if you've got 4 puppies or 10 or 15 puppies, it can be kind of messy to have that pad not really effectively staying where it should stay. So I'll often use the washable pads like the Breeders' Edge whelping pads that we have under the litter tray. So for the puppies that just don't quite make it into the litter box, I just have to wash that and not everything in the litter, in the whelping box. So those are some tips and tricks for litter box training. And I think it's really useful. Clients also really appreciate, people that buy your puppies really appreciate that you have started the puppies on crate training and litter training. When I sell a puppy and they've been litter box trained, I will send home a Ziploc bag full of the substrate that I've used, whether it's pelleted newspaper, pelleted wood. I'll send that home with the client, the purchase of the puppy, not with the expectation that they're going to continue using the litter box in their home, but that if they take it outside in the yard, in the area that they want the puppy to go, urinate and defecate, that's a substrate that's familiar to the puppy. So as soon as they see those pelleted wood pieces, they'll be like, oh, I know what I'm supposed to do when I'm out here. So they'll squat on those surfaces. And not only does that get the puppy going outside, but it also helps to direct them in which part of the yard you'd like them to urinate and defecate in, so that when you go to do yard cleanup, you're not walking all over the yard looking for everything. It's all in one little section of your yard. It's very convenient. Crate training, of course, is another really important step. And before my puppies leave their home, I like for them to be sleeping in a crate. They may not be in crates during the day, but at least at night, I like them to be in crates. I like to have a nice absorbent pad in there so that if they do have an accident, it absorbs. So our Breeders' Edge repeat pads can be really helpful. I start off with the crates next to each other so they don't feel too separated, and then I'll move them a little further apart. And oftentimes then by the time they leave, they're sleeping in a different room from each other so that they're not so unfamiliar with how it feels to sleep in a crate their first night at their new home, so that people aren't tempted to put them in the other room and close the door, or put them in bed with them, or all the other bad habits that develop by puppies not being familiar with sleeping individually in a crate. The other thing that's really helpful is have some kind of music or a white noise machine like they have for kids that can play some kind of background noise, just so that there's a little bit, not too much silence for the puppy. And it also kind of helps to cover up the noise if the puppy does whimper a little bit during their first few nights in their new home. So I don't like people that have to put the puppy, 6 rooms away in their house. I like when they get a new puppy, to have their crate in a bedroom where someone is sleeping, but I don't want that puppy being disruptive. I want him to be comfortable in a crate, comfortable with the white noise, comfortable with a little pad and a toy, so that their crate training goes well. The more effectively we can help people with their new purchases of their puppies, get them crate trained, the more likely they are to stay in a forever home. So I think crate training is very, very important for our puppies. Next, we're going to talk about some of our tips and tricks in raising a social puppy, particularly when I isolation. But even now, there are people who are still not quite as willing as they were to let people traipse into their homes and do some socialization because of a variety of different social isolation. So we're going to talk about a few things here as well. So we're going to talk about games for our puppies. This is one of my favorites. This is a little French bulldog puppy. He's a singleton, so of course he's a little bit demanding. This is a metal muffin tin with a ginger snap, just purchased at the dollar store, and peanut butter or cheese, spray cheese, underneath the ginger snap. So this was an opportunity we had in the exam room. I was trying to talk to the client. This is my foot on the floor holding that tray. It's funny to watch some of these puppies. You see how he's already using his right front foot and his left front foot to hold the tray down so it doesn't scoot away from him. So during conversations, while you're on a Zoom meeting for work, when you're trying to help the kids with their homework or whatever, something like this can be really useful in keeping the puppy busy instead of them getting into trouble. So it's a fun tool to do. The other thing you can do with these muffin tins is you can take their regular dog kibble and you can mix it with yogurt or chicken broth or frankly just some water and put it in the freezer. And then when you go to work in the morning, you give them this tray of their frozen food so that as it thaws out during the morning, they have a little bit of time for it to thaw out. It keeps them busy. You don't want to feed them more than you normally would. You want to measure the amount of food that you're giving and then just pop it in the freezer. I don't suggest that you use the silicone trays. I want you to use the metal ones because I don't want them to rip the silicone up and eat it. But the metal trays, you can get a 6-holer, you can get a 12-holer, you can get them with little tiny holes if you have small puppies. You just have 2 of them, one for the freezer and one for the dishwasher so that you've always got one clean and ready to go for the next feeding. And this really slows down a lot of puppies. You know, golden retrievers, labs, the large breed dogs tend to gobble their food down really quickly and have everything gone in about 30 seconds. So this will take your puppy, instead of 30 seconds to eat, maybe a couple of hours, so that while they're in their crate, after you leave for work in the morning, instead of them going, oh, I'm going to be home all day by myself, you lock this in their crate about 15 minutes before you go to work. Don't let them in the crate. Let them see it through the crate. And they're going to be then standing at the crate door going, let me in. I want my breakfast. So now they start looking forward to you leaving them when you go to school or go to work, instead of them going, oh, it's going to be a long day all by myself. So just kind of a fun way to psychologically turn that around. This is a wading pool. This is actually a kid's sandbox, but it's filled with water with little rubber duckies floating around in it. So this is kind of a fun way that you can keep our puppies entertained. Now this is really fun. This is a litter of farm dog puppies and a litter of corgi puppies. So they're not mixed breed, just to be clear, they're 2 different breeds. I cut honeydew melon. You can do cantaloupe, you can do watermelon. I cut it in half, scooped out the seeds, and then cut it like a grapefruit in segments and put this down in front of the puppies. And they had an absolute blast eating this. I know there are some dogs that are sensitive about diet changes, so you do have to be a little bit careful if you have dogs with sensitive GI tracts, but they're just having a blast in this. And one of the puppies in this litter, when he had his second summer, he was in his new home, and the owner that had purchased him from me called me and she said, did you give him cantaloupe when he was a baby? I said, no, but I gave him honeydew melon. She said, I cut the cantaloupe and he went nuts. He smelled it and he knew what it was going to be. So you can do some fun stuff. This is one of my Danish Swedish farm dogs with cherry tomatoes. These are not grapes. These are cherry tomatoes. And I just threw a couple of them on the floor. This is my husband standing there. And she was having an absolute ball playing with cherry tomatoes. So again, some really fun things that you can do just to be a little entertaining, to give them something new, some changes in experiences. She thought this was just absolutely a blast to carry this around and roll it around on the floor like a little ball. You can see there's 3 of them and she's having a very hard time deciding which one she wants to eat next. So just a fun thing that you can do with puppies, very inexpensively. Fresh fruits and vegetables other than grapes and raisins are great choices for puppies, for treats, for some variety in their diet. Just a lot of fun. All right, surfaces. I have raised 6 dogs for Canine Companions for Independence, and I can tell you that surfaces are really important to these dogs and to any dog that's in any kind of a real life setting. When you have them only in your kennel or only in your home, the only experiences they're going to have would be the flooring that you have. So it can be carpet, it can be concrete, it can be sealed concrete, it can be, whatever surface you're raising the puppies on, linoleum, whatever. But by giving them exposure to a variety of different surfaces, this can really significantly increase their level of confidence on different surfaces. So during COVID, I went to Walmart And I found that Walmart that particular week had 11 different styles of bath mats. I bought 2 of each. So you can see them all here in the box, and I'm going to show you a little bit more detail as we go through it. Not that I live at Walmart, but it's close. So I was able to buy a number of different surfaces, most of which will go in the washing machine. The slatted ones that are rigid don't go in the washer, but all the others can, and then you just hang them outside to dry. So the mesh ones allow urine to run through if they're really young puppies. You can see there's a bristly one. You can see the slatted ones. Here you can see the bristles a little bit better. Here's one with square holes instead of round holes. And you don't think that makes a difference to a puppy, but it actually does. Puppies are not generalized learners. They're very specific learners. So it's important that we give them different experiences. Here's the slatted ones and some that are more of a mesh type. Here's some rounder big holes. Here's some shiny ones. So again, that's a visual difference to puppies. It's a textural difference. So anything we can do to give our puppies a variety of experiences will improve their social skills. Here's a long full-length mirror you can put in front of the puppies. Here are some wobble boards that they use for agility, but another opportunity to give the puppies a chance to feel different stability. Here's little baby agility equipment. So when they grow up into big dogs, they can do agility. Here's a little baby teeter that we made and a little baby dog walk. So they're just a few inches off the ground, but they get those when they're really young. Here's tunnels. You can buy them for kids, but this caterpillar, I have one of those on my deck that I bought at a garage sale. Really fun for the puppies. Here's some other little things here. You can see a caterpillar in the background. Here's a xylophone that's standing up. And then you can see there's a rocking bed that this puppy's laying in. So again, a variety of surfaces. Here are some of the play sets that you can buy. You can build these, you can pick these up. You can see a swing in the background. You can buy that on Amazon and build a frame for it. Here's some kids enrichment centers. Now, when the puppies get old enough to be aggressive and chew aggressively, you don't want to give this to a golden retriever or a lab puppy. But if you've got little breed puppies or they're really young, they can play with these very safely. For exposure, you want to give the puppies exposure to a variety of different surfaces, a different number of experiences. You can use walkers. You can use people with canes. You can have people with umbrellas, people with hats on, people with raincoats on. Funny thing that Tim Conway used to do. He wasn't old when he did it, but he would shuffle across the stage. And those are the things that you need to expose your puppies to so that they're familiar with different people, different gaits, different things that happen. So the better we can expose our puppies, the better off we are. This is a bunch of kids' toys. I just took photographs of what I give to my puppies. Some of these I pick up at garage sales. To be really honest, some of them I pick up sitting on the side of the road when people are just going to throw them away. They put them out at the side of the street. So they're kind of fun. This is a puppy enrichment center that we built out of PVC tubing and a variety of different things. I've got balls. I've got things that make clattery noises. I've got spoons. I've got all kinds of fun stuff here. Now, this is a snuffle mat. You can buy them. You can make them. There are some people who think they're fabulous because you can hide little treats and it gives the puppies something to do. There are other people who are like, no, I don't really want my dogs to go out in the yard and start looking for things. Now, if you're doing barn hunts and scent work, maybe this is a good thing to raise your puppy with. If you're trying to do obedience, maybe that's not what you want. So think it through as to whether that's something suitable for behavior. Here's a little baby bathtub I picked up on the side of the road. Was really fun. The puppies would lay in that little mesh netting and just have a really fun time. I didn't put water in it. They were just hanging out in it. And of course, we want to make sure our puppies get exposed to a variety of different people. When my kids were young, it was really easy. I would bring puppies home for other breeders that my kids could socialize with. You can see one of our corgi puppies is reading with this child. This is my husband with one of our CCI puppies. Here's a couple of kids that come to the practice with their puppies. So again, it's really important that kids get to see puppies and puppies get to see kids when they're still really young and impressionable. It's a very important social skill. This is my grandson hanging out with our puppies. He really thought they were great. This is one of our pictures at the veterinary clinic. We have a variety of different things in the exam room. We have peanut butter, of course, but I have a staff member allergic to peanuts, so we can't do that. So we do peanut butter when we can. We do cheese. We do marshmallow cream. We do cream cheese. We do marshmallows. These are all really fun things. Number one, they're distracting for the puppies. So when they're getting vaccinated and microchipped, they don't notice anything is happening. Number two, these are wonderful things to teach the puppies to eat. So when they have to go home and take medications, they're familiar with marshmallow cream and spray cheese and cream cheese and peanut butter and liver sausage and hot dogs and all the things that we can hide our treats in. It's another picture of a kid at our office playing around with the puppies. This is another picture of a child at our office. So you can see how much fun this is. This is an event that we had where we had a meet and greet. These are my farm dogs with some kids. So here's another opportunity that it's very important that we are using a contract when we're selling puppies, if we're selling direct. And I'm just going to give you some very short pieces of advice. Is number one, you should have an attorney draft the contract, an attorney in your state that's familiar with animal law. It may not be a dog law person, it might be a horse law person, that's fine, but you need to have somebody that is familiar with animal law in your state. Number two is don't just take bits and pieces of contracts from online and put them all together in a contract, because if you do that, you can end up with conflicting statements, which will not serve you well if you end up in a conflict over a contract. Number three is it's most important that you do this when you're selling a puppy or co-owning a puppy with family and friends. You want to keep them as friends, you want to keep them as speaking family members. Be sure that you are getting good information written down so that it is in writing and that you don't have any misunderstandings. As things evolve, sometimes you'll forget what you said or there'll be a change in how things work. So be really careful that you're doing this well. Be careful with what you guarantee, because there may be genetic diseases 5 or 10 years from now when that puppy's still alive that we didn't know were genetic at the time you wrote your contract. As more and more DNA tests come to market, we're finding more and more things are inherited. Cancer, pyometra, infectious diseases, there's probably a genetic component to some of those, so be careful what's in your guarantee. Like I said, be sure it's in writing and be sure you sign it. It's sometimes easy to write a contract and forget to give a copy to each person that's signed. Now I've got some additional tricks here for you. If you have puppies that are, if it's kind of your puppy sales are a little slow, you're having a little trouble with selling them or income, you can do what some of my clients do. And that if you keep the puppies for an extra 2 to 4 weeks, you can charge an additional fee for crate training, for housebreaking, for leash walking, for some of those things. I also have clients that have families that do this for them. So they may raise the dogs at their kennel, but they may have families that are homeschooling their children. So they've got kids at the house, mom's home with 6 kids, homeschooling. Great opportunity for those families to get a little bit of income from you having your puppies socialized and trained at their home. I have clients that are charging up to an extra $1,000 for this service, because clients really appreciate that by your puppies, that they come with those skills. If they're working from home, working at the office, it's a really great opportunity. Now, of course, you want to set expectations. They're not going to be perfectly housebroken 2 weeks from the time that you would have normally sold them, but it does give people a chance to come with a puppy that's got some initial housebreaking opportunities. And the skills that people really seem to appreciate are going to be walking on a leash, crate training, and housebreaking. We've talked about crate training. We've talked about housebreaking. Leash walking is kind of interesting. And I've learned this from a client that they took on the collar for the puppies. They would put like several puppies out together and they would take a little short piece of a leash attached to that collar, and the puppies would pull on each other's tab collars, tab leashes, and they would learn the feel of having pressure put against their collar by another dog. And they tolerated that much better than you trying to walk the puppy up and down the hall, up and down the sidewalk. Now, of course, you want to make sure that they're supervised when they're in this situation, because you don't want a puppy to get strangled by another puppy. But it's a really cool trick for faster leash training. The other thing you can do if it's kind of slow is the opposite of not letting people to your house. And this is an opportunity that one of my clients did this summer when we had nice weather. Clearly, between now and Christmas, it's not going to be that nice in a lot of part of the country. But he had a party at his house. He sent it out on Facebook. He had several hundred people show up. He had roasters full of bratwurst, coolers full of beer, and then he had the puppies out in the lawn. He had a pen of puppies that weren't sold yet, a pen of puppies that were sold, and people that were just kind of testing the waters, or maybe had already bought a dog for him, were interested in coming to see what was there. And he cleared out every puppy that he had for sale that day or that weekend in just 2 days. So it does require people coming to your facility or your home or your kennel or whatever, but it is a great way to market with people that are familiar with you because they're already Facebook friends and followers of yours. I sell puppies across the country, so it's hard for me to make sure that I like the people and that they like the puppies and all those things if they haven't had a chance to see the puppies and meet us through a Zoom call. So using Zoom or FaceTime or, whatever service you want to use, it's a really nice way for people to see you, see your puppies, you meet them, without having a meet and greet in person. That should say meet and greet, not meet and greet. Sorry about the typo, but it's a nice way for people to see you really do have a dog for sale, because there are scams out there. It's a really nice way for them to look at the dogs and make sure that they like what they're going to get before they buy a plane ticket, before they make a commitment to buying a puppy. It's a great way to place puppies. Be sure when you're placing the puppies, you're sending their medical records. And there are some pet insurance companies, AKC has it, Trupanion has it, that they can get a free first 30-day insurance trial. And that's a great way to make sure that your puppies are getting insurance, health insurance, so that later on, when they have a health problem, that they're already insured. And the earlier you insure a puppy, the less likely they are to have an exemption because of a pre-existing medical condition. So pet owners appreciate that 30-day of free insurance. And if they like the insurance, then they can continue paying for the policy. Transitioning to a new home, make sure that they bring a bottle for water so that you can send your own water with them. Make sure that they already have purchased the food you're feeding, or you send a small amount of food with them, because during that transition, we don't want them to have diarrhea because of a water and food change. And then if you're selling puppies that you may have had Giardia in your facility, be sure that they know that the IDEXX test, the SNAP test for Giardia, can stay positive for an unknown period of time, at least weeks, possibly months, after the Giardia is cleared. It can still show positive on that test. So if the puppy doesn't have diarrhea and doesn't have Giardia cysts, I don't get excited about it. But if you educate the buyers about this, they're not going to call you the week after they get the puppy and say, you sold me a dog that has Giardia. My vet said he's sick. So get ahead of that by educating them that that Giardia test stays positive. A couple of other tricks is that if you use Albon the last 3 days at your house and the first 3 days at their new home, they are less likely to end up with diarrhea and parvo. Yes, parvo is a virus. Yes, Albon is an antibiotic and it doesn't treat viruses, but Albon stabilizes the bacteria in the GI tract, so they're less likely to get diarrhea, therefore less likely to pick up parvo. And fenbendazole, you can do the last 3 to 5 days at your house, 5 days if you're going to treat Giardia, so that they go out of your house clean. Their GI tract is clean, because it'll get roundworms, hookworms, whipworms, Giardia, and one kind of tapeworm. So people that are buying your puppies are leaving your house with the cleanest GI tract that they can have. If you have small breed puppies, be sure that they know that hypoglycemia can be a concern if the puppies don't eat very well the first few days. You can have them pick up a bottle of Eagle brand sweetened condensed milk instead of the can. Walmart sells it in bottles and bags. Nice handy way for them to have a little glucose on hand. If they don't, they can use honey, they can use Karo syrup, they can use maple syrup, but some way to make sure that the puppy doesn't have low blood sugar from missing a meal. And this glucose product will also help if you have constipated puppies. So resources for puppies, great idea for them to already have a list of things that you want them to purchase before they come pick up their puppy or before the puppy is shipped to them. Make sure they've got their toys, their little beds, exercise pens. Crates are great, and so are exercise pens. And unfortunately, other than the dog fancy, a lot of people don't use X pens. They're great, they're portable. If they're going to their friend's house for Thanksgiving or Christmas, they take it along. The puppy has a playpen outside in the house. Really handy way for people to keep their puppies safe. More products, again, like the microchip. Don't forget to microchip your puppies. Don't forget to make sure that they've got the GI symbiotics to help stabilize gut bacteria so puppies don't get diarrhea. So we have lots and lots of resources in bundles on our website. So don't forget to have that. Now, of course, we have the Canine Reproduction and Neonatology book, which goes through a lot of the material on getting your females pregnant, the males, the puppies, the C-sections, the raising the puppies, the neonates. But the Your Pandemic Puppy book is still really valuable, even though we're technically no longer in the pandemic. For new puppy owners, I make all my puppy buyers read this book before I sell them a puppy. I had one client that sent the book home with the puppy when the puppy was sold, and the people bought the puppy and brought the puppy back to the breeder the day after. They got the puppy home, they read the book, and they're like, you know what? We're not ready for this kind of a commitment. And I'd much rather hear from a client the day after, when you can still get that puppy back. It's still safe, it's still socialized. You can sell that puppy again and rehome it safely, instead of 6 months out when they realize that that puppy has grown up incorrectly and you have lots of behavioral and health problems as a result. So super important, have the book available to them, and then just make sure it goes through all the new recommendations on flea and tick medications, all the new recommendations on ages to spay and neuter, the new recommendations on vaccinations. If they haven't had a puppy in 10 or 15 years, things have changed. So this will be an update for any new puppy buyer so that you can make sure that that puppy is getting the right medical care. There's information on reducing the risk of separation anxiety, a lot of great information in there about halves on behavior, about halves on medicine. So they've got a good foundation when they're getting their new puppy. Again, we have our whelping supply list and equipment list for people that are having puppies. Again, we have our QR code here for that. And the drugs and medical supplies, some of these you do need prescriptions for, so make sure you talk to your veterinarian in advance. The puppy warmer incubator and the puppy warmer oxygen concentrator run about $1,000 a piece. Great Christmas gift if you're looking for something like your family is asking, what do you want for Christmas? Perfect chance to say, you know what, I'd like that incubator. I've always wanted one, and this is a great chance to get it.
For sure. And we do have a few questions. A few people asking, let's go back to the beginning when you were talking about ENS. Somebody's wondering, would you start ENS on day 3, even if they got dew claws removed that same day?
Yes.
They said they've waited until the day after dew claw removals.
No, I would do it because it's a more positive experience than the dew claw removal. Yes, you've handled them a lot, but it's not a positive opportunity. And that's another place to give your Karo syrup or your sweetened condensed milk, is I give that at the time of the dew claw and tail dock. We know from baby pigs that they have less stress if they have glucose levels that are supportive. So if you don't have your vet doing it, we do it at our practice, but if you don't, take your little bottle along and just take a Q-tip and drop a little in their mouth, and they're going to be calmer during that procedure.
Okay. Another person, kind of back to the ENS, they're wondering about the scents. You talked about that a lot. Why add the scents in? They're asking, what value does that have to the new owners?
It just gives them some experiences that they hadn't had otherwise. And it's kind of fun. I mean, let's face it, we should have fun when we're raising our puppies.
For sure. There's nothing that fun about puppies, right?
Well,
Kelly's wondering, how do you handle puppy teething and discourage destructive habits or developing mouthiness?
Great question. And that's basically make sure that they have appropriate things to chew on. If they're coming over and mouthing at your hand, always have a stuffed toy in your pocket so that you can put that in their mouth instead, and then go pick up another one and stick it in your pocket so you're always armed. Giving them appropriate directed things to chew on are going to be your best bet. And we've got lots of them. Soft toys if their mouth is sore, harder toys when they're a little bit more aggressive chewers. So just be well equipped for those things. Bitter apple to keep them from chewing on the chair legs and the furniture. So there's a lot of tools that we have to give that direction.
Okay. Again, back to the ENS. Somebody's wondering, why do you stop ENS at day 16?
Because that's what they do. I don't really know the science behind it, other than that's what Dr. Battaglia said that was done with the military. And that's when they start opening their eyes, start hearing things. I think other kinds of social inputs start to happen at that point. So I don't think that we continue it after that.
Okay. Somebody's wondering, you talked a lot about puppy socialization with other people. So when is it really safe health-wise for the puppies to be exposed to all the people that you mentioned, kids and elderly and all sorts of things like that?
And that's a really good question, because it is a trade-off. Puppies don't have full immunity from vaccinations until they're probably about 18 weeks old. If you don't start socialization between 6 and 7 weeks, you have social disasters. So you need to make sure the people that are socializing with are clean, that they've taken off their jackets, taken off their shoes, that they've washed their hands, that you haven't taken them to places that aren't safe. But it is a trade-off. And which is worse, a puppy that isn't socialized or a puppy that picks up an infectious disease? And I think more puppies are poorly socialized and will succumb to that than infectious diseases. But be smart about it. Don't take them to someplace that has diarrhea on the floor. Like, that's not good.
Jody's wondering, how does the new owner transition their water with the water that this person sends home with them? Do they mix them together, or how do you recommend?
Yeah, I would start with just your water the first day or two, and then start mixing it so that they slowly transition, because sometimes a water change is all it takes to throw a puppy into diarrhea. And no new pet owner wants to wake up in the middle of the night with diarrhea in the crate or in the bed. It's very unpleasant. So yes, do that transition carefully, and maybe have them bring a couple of jugs. If it's a large breed dog, bring a couple of empty jugs and just fill them up with your own water. It's simple.
Okay. We have time for about 2 more questions. We'll do, Lori's wondering, you suggest Albon the last 3 days and the first 3 days, and also Panicure for the last 3 days. So she's wondering, you can give both at the same time. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And then finally, the cantaloupe. You mentioned the cantaloupe. Somebody's wondering, how do you cut that? How do you feed that? What size should you give to the pups?
I just, watermelon, cantaloupe, honeydew, whatever has the rind on it, I just cut it, scoop out the seeds, cut it like a grapefruit around, like rim it around the edge and then into sections so that they can pick up a little piece so that they're not all fighting over the same opening in the bowl. But any fruit or vegetable, carrots, celery, lettuce, broccoli, cauliflower, any of those can be broken up into small pieces. And the puppies it's such a great experience for them. It's so much fun. And it's fun to see which puppies like cauliflower and which ones are like, ew. And it is really an enjoyment and it's part of the great joy of watching puppies grow. There's nothing more fun than watching your litter grow up and be ready to leave home. It's a blast.
Awesome. Sounds like my kids though, with some like cauliflower, some don't,
Yeah.
So again, thank you so much, Dr. Greer, for joining us today, sharing all your knowledge. And again, I encourage you to visit our Learning Center. A lot of resources there. If you missed part 1 of Dr. Greer's webinar and you want to see that again, and you're like, oh, I want to see part 1, it's there. It's in the Learning Center. So go to the Learning Center, check it out, and you'll watch that. Her first part, it was the first breath and beyond. So kind of starting right there as the puppies are born is what she talked about in that webinar. So again, follow us on social media if you haven't already, on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, we're there. So thank you again, everybody, for joining us today. Thank you, Dr. Greer. I'm Shelley, the content manager at Revival Animal Health, and we appreciate all you do. And we thank you for joining us today. Have a great day.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Hi, if you're watching on YouTube, consider subscribing to the Revival Animal Health YouTube channel. If you have a pet health question, call our pet care pros at this number. And don't miss our other pet health videos.